Johnson are working with me right now. And the three of us are gathering lots of information from across Maryland. I was in a meeting with about, I don't know, 30 or 40 people from 11 to 12, and one earlier this morning, and 5 yesterday, and I'll be in 2 more today, and 5 more tomorrow. So a lot of meetings going on, both in person and public. And so we looked for a lot of different ways to gather information. The state board has asked us to gather information from people all across Maryland, from all different constituent groups and different roles in Maryland, about the next state superintendent qualifications and characteristics. And then we'll take that information to the state board in the coming days in the form of a leadership profile and desired characteristics. They will use that to guide their thinking as they go forward with the process. And we will attach it to the search posting. And it will tell people a lot of information, multiple pages of information about what folks in Maryland are saying about Maryland State Department of Education, the state superintendent role, and that relationship to families, parents, communities, school districts, school staff, all of those issues, curriculum, whatever it is people want to talk about. And then that information will also be supplied to the state board, the bulk of the information beyond just what's attached to the posting and the application will be supplied to the state board and the incoming new state superintendent, who will be named in May. So they'll use the information. We'll go out and we'll post the job nationally and with all the advocacy groups and the associations, national and regional associations, all the publications. By the middle of March, the state board will look at all the candidates, and we will identify those that we think, 12, 14, 16, that we think fit these descriptors the best, but they will choose who they want to interview from all of those things. We'll just do some of the analysis and background and give it to them in mass, because the only thing that matters to us is that we find a good array of candidates that fit what Maryland says it needs, and then the state board go through a process to choose. And so they'll interview in April, and they'll interview finalists by the end of April, beginning of May. And then the person will start the 1st of July, which is Maryland state law about that. So that's the process. That's how the information will be used. Nobody will be named. Like, sometimes I take direct quotes, but I won't say that, on this date at this time, Timothy Meyer said this. I'll just say, constituents express this sentiment, and this particular quote really gets to the heart of that issue. And so we look for themes, and we also look for specific, unique ideas that aren't maybe expressed by lots of people, but go to the heart of the work and the effort and what the job really calls for, and try to give all that information. So I asked 3 questions, and they're really big questions, which means you can answer about anything you want to answer. The first question is, what has worked in your experience? What's a strength or a way of being that you think has worked for people? The second is, what's a challenge or an area of concern or change that you think needs to be made in the entire system with this person that's coming in? And the final is, what are the personal characteristics of the person? So, obviously they have to have a superintendent certificate. They have to have a degree or some education. But really, what is their experience, their background, their expertise, their attitudes, their values, their belief systems, their actions that you think are particularly important to the job? So as you think about what to keep, what to maintain because it's strong, what to change, stop doing, improve, whatever way you think it needs to be changed, and then finally the characteristics. And I can repeat those at any time as you think about this, and as others listen and potentially join in. So that's the way it works, and I'm happy to sit back and I'll take lots of notes. So when you see me looking down, I'm writing and taking notes that will be then transcribed.
Thank you very much for the overview. Very comprehensive.
Good.
I guess I can just start I'll just do a quick introduction. My name is I am a longtime PTO leader in Prince George's County. in Mount Rainier, Maryland. Uh,
Mhm.
I'm in my 5th year. I'm currently a president, but I'm in my 5th year total as a PTO leader. So, uh, and having done this on a long-term basis, I would say that especially serving as a PTO leader over the last few years through the COVID period, we've really seen the value of having strong leadership. That I think very, very highly, especially of our it was used to be CEO was the name of the title.
Yep.
In terms of impressions of the Maryland State Board of Education or the state education department,
Yep.
I think candidly a lot of parents on the ground don't really have much of an impression. I, as a PTO leader, have dealt with uh, state leaders on more issues just by virtue of being a PTO president, but just having greater accessibility going into individual schools, I think, is something that the state can work on. I had the opportunity last spring to work with the State Board of Education. There was uh, I believe it was Charette was the name, but a meeting
Yep.
where we were working together on um, issues around teacher recruitment and teacher retention. And so I had the opportunity to be one of the PGCPS representatives working on that. And I would say that that is probably one of the biggest issues for the new superintendent, for the new state superintendent. Uh,
Mhm.
we need someone who's going to be not only the face of Maryland schools, but someone who is going to be a tireless advocate for education in Maryland. Someone who we have to have someone who's going to acknowledge that on things like recruiting teachers, whoever that person is in that superintendent's position is going to be the leader who's actively going out there where teachers, when they're looking at multiple different states where they may want to start their careers or continue their careers, say, this is the type of inspirational leader that we want to go and we want to work in a state with a leader like that.
Mhm.
I do have to say, we need the State Board of Education to celebrate the successes of schools in Maryland, celebrate the diversity of schools in Maryland. Um, we are very proud in Prince George's County that one of our former staffers is now helping to lead the communications department at the state level, and I believe has been doing a phenomenal job. I won't mention names, but just speaking broadly here, that we are definitely PGCPS proud to have one of our own helping to lead the communications. But it's something that I do myself as an individual PTO leader. Is every time that there's something positive that's happening in our school, we try to make sure we get the word out to fellow parents, to the community, to other folks in the county, that this is what's happening in PGCPS. This is what's happening in our individual schools, and just more highlighting of all the positive that's happening around the state. Not only, obviously, my experiences in Prince George's County, but we are a very, very diverse state from the Eastern Shore to Western Maryland. Baltimore, certainly, Baltimore and Montgomery County are unique in and of their own. So we need, I think, a leader who really appreciates the fact that one size does not necessarily fit all in the state. And someone who has experience, ideally, we would have someone who has experience around, someone who doesn't just come from one part of the state or have one narrow part of their background. But if we had a leader at the state level, a superintendent who has actually worked in different areas around the state, I think that would definitely be a positive. And I may have some more thoughts, but I know there's a few other people who have joined as well. So I'm going to give others a chance to talk.
Okay, excellent. I got those notes. I appreciate that. Would anyone else like to share at this point strengths, things to maintain, or changes that are needed and challenges that the state is facing, or personal characteristics and professional background and experience of the person that Maryland needs to attract and recruit at this point? Anything else at all from anyone? Hello.
Hi, how are
How are
you?
you today? I'm good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. I logged in late. I had a computer issue, but I'm
Mhm.
glad I got in. So what you're looking for, the new superintendent?
Yes. Yep.
I mean, we have to keep in mind how diverse Maryland is. I mean, it started with Montgomery County. What, more than 50% is from different backgrounds. I know the superintendent he or she will be the leader and have all of people who can work in different groups, different committees to oversee those groups. I mean, everybody be assigned a certain a task, a certain thing. But I remember when you had the theme, all for all. All means all. Okay, it's not working actually now. It's not. We need someone who can, when we say open the door for everyone. Open door, not just for the visible community, for the people who are savvy about how to navigate the system. We have to remember 50% or more than 50% is immigrants born somewhere else. They don't understand how the system works here. So instead of waiting for somebody to come to you, you have to reach out to them. When you have to reach out to them, that means you have to sign someone to reach out to them. We elect and we vote for certain people on the board, not to just represent their own little community. It doesn't work that way. But I'm going to talk about from the Arab point of view or Middle Eastern or a Muslim point of view. We don't have any representation. So in the board or anywhere else in the administration, we don't have any. So how can we succeed? How can we see that a system gonna work for everyone if we don't have a representation in the administration? We have different, like let's say, I worked on the Rocking Horse, which is the first stop for any immigrant parent, and it's a nice one-stop shop kind of for the parents, but there's a lot of things missing. We have to provide the tools. We are capable. We have the budget of the, if you employ, I'm sorry, it's not against anyone personal or anything, but we're paying hundreds of thousands for some people just to be in the office and doing administrative work. But who's in the ground there? We need to focus on the people who are on the ground, who are visible, who will reach out to the communities. That's how you include and you engage parents. Superintendent, you're the leader. Everything goes under. So that comes with the job. You have to be involved in everybody. You have to understand. And what's like for the past, no number of years, but many negative issues are going on for lack of communication between departments. I mean, this is happening, and it's happening, and probably in a lot of areas. Communication is very important. I think if there is a certain set time, the superintendent can invite the heads of the departments to meet at least once a month or every other month, and to report back. Like I served in the county PTA and my children PTAs. We come once a month and everybody reports what they see in the community. And that's how rules come out, and we change the policies and everything based on the experience of the workers who are in the ground. I think for a superintendent to hold, let's say, for example, town hall meetings, be open in the door, go to the communities. Don't wait for them to come to you, because a lot of communities, as I said earlier, they're not accustomed to go, because I come from a community that we respect the educators, so we don't question them. If I call to a question, that's disrespect in my behalf. So we need to reach out to those communities. Come to them, come to their centers, come to their churches, wherever they gather. That really can change the whole atmosphere of any, and most of the people who come to this country, they already have education, good background of education. Let's use them, either volunteers or as employees, whatever. Utilize this. We have embassies in Washington, D.C. We're very fortunate to be near the Capitol. We have universities who are willing, they have programs to reach out for, it will not cost us anything. Yeah, I introduced the idea to partnership with Georgetown University, the Arab Contemporary Studies and Muslim Christian Understanding departments, and we're doing great. We do training for teachers. We hold at least maybe once or more a training or session where teachers come and we make it as fun as possible, and it doesn't cost MCPS anything. So if we do it after hours, 4 to 7. The meals are provided already, the books are provided, and what's stopping us? You see, so these kind of programs, the superintendent needs to know these programs. You can start, let's say, a liaison to reach out to those universities. We're so fortunate how many universities we have in this area that we can use. You know, look, in Baltimore or Gettysburg, we have the USG. 7, 9 universities in one spot. Yeah, Montgomery College, but we need the communication, every section, everywhere that we can get. We have the business roundtable, because one year I was assigned to one, and I don't know if it still exists, McBree, Montgomery County Business Roundtable. We have the Marriott, so we have the Toyotas, and we have Comcast. All the leaders that came and met regularly there, and they offer their services. They offered programs, sponsorship, scholarship to students. So this is another way of reaching out to the business community in this area. I mean, it doesn't matter what background the superintendent comes, you know, ethnically or religiously, because they need to come with conscience and humanity and patience, and to reflect on the community, the makeup of the community now. To keep in mind also on the political atmosphere now. It's not, you know, for example, we have, with this Middle East situation right now, so many statements, very negative, came out. How do you address somebody who lost 35 people and tell them your people are terrorists? No, you have to keep in mind, or you just stay out of the outside politics. Either you cover everybody or just don't cover anybody, and keep focus on the situation right here. But this is not really happening right now. We put teachers in administrative leave, and other teachers say whatever they want. They don't. So we have also to keep that in balance. It's making communities have mistrust in this situation. I mean, it's a lot of issues going on right now. I've been active all my life in this. I invested 35 years of my life in CPS as a volunteer. Yes, maybe I was paid for, as employee, but not anymore. Many people, this situation like this, it scares a lot of people away, and it's disappointing. So we need someone to sit. When I call for a meeting, I expect an answer, not my answer is ignored. If we have to count the meetings that goes on with certain groups, they're more, as I said, savvy and aggressive, whatever, visible, but there's no zero meetings with other groups. That's wrong. So we need somebody who can be open-minded. That's your job. After you leave your office, that's your personal life is different. But once you are in that office, you have to respect everyone.
So I've jotted down a lot of notes from both of you, and some of the last few were, we need a person who's respectful, responsive, and someone who follows up, someone who's open-minded. Are there other characteristics that you think are particularly important in the state superintendent as they work with all 24 local school systems, as they work with over 1 million students who are highly diverse, as you both pointed out, and bring all sorts of of different backgrounds, experiences, cultures, languages to the schools, what are the other characteristics that you think are going to be particularly important for the person?
I'll just jump in if that's okay. And I
Please.
a couple that I had kind of jotted down once I saw what the questions were. I think you need someone who, this gets a little bit to what Samira was saying, but you need someone who's unifying, and that goes along with respect, but you need someone who's unifying where whether you are a superintendent of an individual school district or a state superintendent, you're going to be dealing with parents, you're going to be dealing with teachers, you're going to be dealing with elected officials. And a lot of times you see just factions, whether it's an individual school or again, it's statewide. And so you need someone who's really going to have the type of inspiring leadership that's going to bring everyone together. I forgot to say in my first answer, you need someone who's going to be fully committed to the blueprint. And this also gets into, I believe, your question number 2, which is the challenges ahead. We see all the warnings up ahead in terms of the fiscal situation of the state and possible budget cuts and things like that. And the school that I represent has about 80% of students who are classified as being lower income. We're a Title I school. We are a community school. We have a very large immigrant population as well. And for a school like us, the blueprint is absolutely essential. And we need someone who is going to defend it unequivocally at the state level, who's going to help rally parents and teachers behind it, who's going to make sure that whatever cuts have to happen at the state level do not come out of the blueprint. And that also goes along to, you need someone who's able to stand up to political pressure. Again, whether it's locally or at the state level. And one example I always go back to is a couple years ago, when COVID was at its height, there was some pressure from the state about, we need to get the schools reopened as quickly as possible, whether it was state leaders, national leaders. And when I look back at some of the strongest success that we had in Prince George's County, we had strong leadership who was willing to look at the science, look at the data, and say, we are not going to rush back into putting students and teachers back in the schools just to, just to deflect political pressure. We're gonna do what we know is right. And sometimes you don't know what the what the issues up ahead are, but you need someone in there who's going to be confident in who they are and confident that they know that they're doing the right thing for schools throughout the state of Maryland, and is willing to sometimes take that political heat if they have to in order to lead.
Thank you.
And then I would also just say, someone who is in touch with Maryland. I said this earlier, we are a very unique state. We are very diverse. And you need someone who's going to value the input of parents as well. And I said, and I'd have to clarify that, where sometimes when you look at nationally and you hear catchphrases like, more parental involvement in schools, it means a different thing in a place like Texas or Florida or Northern Virginia than it does in, say, Prince George's County or Maryland. That's not, I'm not talking about parents going to school board meetings and trying to, get books banned and things like that. When I talk about parental involvement in schools and someone who's going to really value the opinions of parents, it's someone who wants to go into school, someone who wants to meet parents, someone who actually wants to work together as partners with parents. And I think that's just one of those intangibles that's very important, whoever the next leader of the state education board is.
Thank you.
The next state superintendent.
Actually, Timothy, you kind of summarize what I had in mind. I think establishing a good relationship with the state, local, and national representatives, because I know we got a lot of support from certain senators for example, for the Head Start program. We need, because that's a federal level, right? And we need to, I know Timothy already said that, reach out to other districts who are similar to our population, what worked and what didn't. I remember when you and Dr. Weiss came, I was asked to do a benchmark. Honestly, I had no idea. And then I wound up doing something about California. I was so fascinated by what worked for them And yeah, I didn't know these things, to compare. And I think it's really good education, even just knowing, if we don't have to duplicate, but knowing, having the information for us. Some things work and some things, you know, when I came to this country, I only finished 7th grade, and then we had the war, and I came here. I didn't know any English. But what I have learned, I will always thank my teachers for kind of putting me under pressure. That's why I still can read and write Arabic. If I was not kind of put under that pressure, not really pressure, but they focused. They knew what to assign me, and then I kept the assignment. And then if I didn't do the assignment, there is more increase of the assignment. So that's why we had to put pressure. Math, most of the, if you notice, like South Asians, Middle Eastern, in math and science, to them this is number one, because we come from a good, strong background. But here, when my kids went to school, they say, I hate math. I said, what are you saying that? My friends are saying that. Then we had to, undo this thinking. It's not to hate math. It's just maybe math is not introduced properly or taught properly. Or so we have to look into those countries, how they teach math. And, invite some of the teachers, do exchange teachers, maybe. If we do exchange for students, we can have some of those teachers. What I learned in college, I took it in 7th grade, algebra. So I feel like we are way behind here. So we need to benefit from partners from outside the United States also. That's my
Thank you.
say.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Other comments on strengths? Hello, welcome. Strengths and things to maintain, challenges and changes to make, or personal characteristics of the next state superintendent candidates? Any other descriptors in mind of the kinds of attributes and qualities the person should have? I've made a lot of notes here from what you've been saying, but are there any other things that you think they really need to bring when they come that haven't been mentioned?
I'm trying to defer to see if anyone else wants to say anything, but I would just say in general, I think one thing I want to emphasize is that we really need to make sure this is a truly open search process. And I know you're having meetings like this and there's a survey, but we need to make sure that at least for parents, it doesn't just appear that it's an open search process, but that there's one or two candidates kind of handpicked already. We need to make sure that that the process is willing to listen to any new people who either apply or are recommended. I think you said something at the beginning that every candidate's going to check all the basic boxes. They're going to have they're going to have the required education levels. They're going to have the required professional background. But I just do really want to emphasize that, to me, what sets strong leaders apart are those intangibles. And listening to Samira talk about the role in teachers when she first came to this country, I think you need someone who has not lost touch of what it's like to be a teacher in the classroom. Almost any candidate would have started their career, whether they have been an administrator for 5 years or 15 years, everyone would have started their career being a teacher. Whether it was high school, elementary, whatever school it was, and someone who you can picture just. There's no way for that you can measure this. It's that intangible that I'm trying to describe. Someone who can suddenly pop back into a school and sit down in front of a classroom full of kids and instantly have that connection, even if they've been out of the classroom for the last 10 years. I think that that is something that's needed for whoever the new superintendent is. I'd like the state department to continue working closely with parents. I said how I was able to participate in a teacher recruitment and event last year, and there were only a couple of parents who were involved. It was mostly administrators and administrators and even some superintendents from around the state. But having the opportunity as a parent to weigh in, that experience made me a better leader for my own school. It broadened my view of education. It made it easier for me to go back and talk to teachers in my own school about what they go through on a daily basis. So no matter who the new superintendent is, I would like to see the State Department do more outreach like that to parents, more opportunities for parents to provide input, setting up just even if it's just going and setting up a table at back to school nights or other events throughout the school year. Obviously we have so many schools in the state, they can't get to every single one, but it would be nice to have multiple appearances from the State Department in each county, or in a county like Prince George's County or Montgomery County that are very, very broad, obviously different pockets of the county as well. And from a philosophical standpoint, I do want to point out that I think we need someone who identifies that success is not always measured in test scores. That's something that we do a lot of even when people are moving into a neighborhood, they check online, they try to find out what are the test scores, and that's how we define quote unquote good schools or bad schools. And I know from looking at families at my school, there's a lot of kids who learned the concepts. They might not necessarily, especially if English is your second language, you may understand everything that's being taught, but it may not translate as well on a written test. Some kids are able to answer questions very, very quickly. Some kids, it just takes a little bit longer. Some kids, when they're doing those standardized tests, they may not test as well, just because they needed that extra 5 or 10 minutes to try to complete all their answers. And so we use a phrase all the time called "Make Maryland an Education Destination." I think that needs to be at the front of the mind of whoever the next superintendent is. Every day you are working to make Maryland an education destination. And that's for teachers, that's for families finding a spot that they want to, finding a place that they want to settle and live and send their kids to school. So I'm rambling a little bit there. But yeah,
great.
I think that, make Maryland, if I had to sum it up, I would say make Maryland an education destination.
Yep.
Needs to be at the top of the mind every day of the new state superintendent. And we just need someone who's not going to look at success of schools just based on things like test scores, because there are so many other factors that go into it.
Absolutely. Many ways to define and use evidence to see success in students. Yep. Excellent. Anyone else that's on the call now would like to speak at this point? Any other thoughts that anyone wants to share at this point?
I can if nobody else is. Mental health is really a big section. Sometimes it's not really focused on. It's not really ignored, but like, for example, our counselors, my kids graduated a long time ago, but from knowing the counselors, we're not really to counsel. They're busy just doing the schedule for the next semester and that kind of advice. But mental health part is really missing. And with all what's, I have witnessed some, new immigrants, the kids who came from war, the kids who, any little noise that brings something else to their mind. And we label that child is, different labels. And the parents, they don't understand that you have to take your child here. You have to tell the parent what's going on, understand. When the children come from war, I remember, I've been there. Any little noise, the speakers, because that reminds us of warning. There's a war. There's an attack coming, and it doesn't mean the child is something wrong with the child or the child is bad when the child hides under the table. Yeah, it's too many things. I think mental health here, it's not really what's supposed to be. We need to hire the specialist to study the background of children of war, children of abuse, children of all. For example, we have thousands of people coming from southern border. We don't know what they went through. We have to understand to be able to accommodate, makes it easier for everyone, the families, the system, the teachers, because sometimes the teachers have to be the counselor, the mommy, the psychologist. The teachers are there to teach. So I think mental health issues should be really focused on also, and hire the best, do training, bring people who experienced to talk. I think sometimes if we listen to someone who experienced it, it's better than a workshop all day from just fancy words and data and on the pages. You know, that's my opinion, what I have observed throughout the years. When my children were going through, and by the way, I don't know, Dr. Smith, you know, we after the Gulf War, my family has the longest hate crimes, 10 years of torture. No one did anything for my children. When I said, can you go and see the counselor? And they say, really? How are we gonna go to a counselor who's gonna fix our situation, because she doesn't understand what we're going through. She doesn't have she has no idea. Yeah. And my children taught me that, because they didn't trust, or they understand they're not gonna benefit out of going to a counselor who doesn't know anything about them. Some will just say, oh, he's ADHD and oh, he's lazy. I have heard all kinds of this. One teacher says, because during Ramadan, my child was fasting. My child is 17, he's an adult. She called me to say, she meant the religion, you're very cruel to make your child fast. She told me that. I kept my mouth shut because she's his teacher. I didn't want to bring any situation between my child and his teacher. And I said, it's okay. And we lived, and up to this day, nobody knows what the teacher name is. But I know there would be consequences if I brought it up. But no, I said, the only thing we can do is educate. You know, people just say it out of ignorance. I don't understand everybody's culture either. So I have to accept that part. That's why I said I have to educate myself about other people. I'm just talking about my personal life, my personal situation, because I went through a lot when all these hate crimes are going, because I didn't understand why people are doing this to my children. Why? And I found there's a lot of ignorance there because we don't teach these things here, and we're not ready for the changes that comes to our community, whether we want it or not. When we had people from Louisiana after the hurricane,
Right.
yeah, and we absorbed thousands of students. And one family came, and I was trying to do registration, and I said, where's your documents? She says, I don't have any. We lost everything. I ran out of my office. I was crying and crying. And one of my colleagues, she says, why are you crying? I couldn't hold myself to tell her why. I told her, I can't work with this family. She said, why? Did they say something? Somebody else? I said, no, you don't understand. And because she said, I lost everything, that brought me back that I lost everything too. So that kind of feeling that it brings, you know, a lot. We need to understand the population we work with. And I think we need more, maybe more training, more reach out. And by the way, I host a group of teachers, and they get this for credit, and in a mosque, and they witness everything. They come. Many of them, because we do a survey, have never talked to a Muslim or been in a mosque or nothing. We see the building, but we don't know how to reach out to you. So that really, I mean, the simplest questions they ask, and after that, a lot of these people become very, acquainted with families. Sometimes you bring certain parents to come and talk with them and see them. And that's how we establish the good relationship and engagement from the community, from the parents. They can approach that if you have a question, there's the center, right? It's open, just go and ask. So, it goes back to communication always.
Absolutely. So, and understanding, yeah. Communication builds understanding and
Yes,
builds relationships. Yeah, absolutely. Any other thoughts before we wrap up here in the next few minutes? Anything that anybody wants to make sure we get in the record? I've talked to about well over 100 people yesterday, 100 maybe 20, and about 25 today so far, and I'll have no more than that probably. The group earlier was about 30, so maybe 35 or more today. And then I have 2 more groups this afternoon, and then 5 more groups tomorrow and 2 on Friday. So we'll have a lot of information, a lot of the same themes being repeated, but also the 2 of you have offered some unique and different perspectives too on this. So really appreciate your time and your patience. I know, it was just one of those things at MSD where unfortunately the same link got posted twice. So we were kind of bouncing around we were out there bouncing around in the digital world. But I'm so glad we connected today and very much appreciate your insights, your experience, your understanding. School is so critically important. I came from a family where neither of my parents went to high school, let alone college. And I grew up in a dusty little town in eastern Washington State, and public education made all the difference in my life. So I just want to see it be strong and robust and meet the needs of each and every student. Like Samira said, all has to mean all, each and every one. It does. And so, but really appreciate the chance to hear from you today.
I just wanted to echo what Samira said on the importance of mental health as well. And I think that just reinforces protecting the blueprint and protecting the fund, and having someone in a perfect world, having someone who has been on the ground here in Maryland throughout the implementation of the blueprint as well. Because there were some lessons learned in the first couple of years. So we really appreciate how much effort it took to get that passed in the first place. Someone who appreciates the positive impacts that it's had on the schools, and certainly extra resources for things like mental health have been part of that. But I do want to flag one other. This is kind of a Prince George's County centric issue you have made progress on, but I think also applies at the state level, which is Prince George's County, within the last year or 2, has passed the Climate Change Action Plan. A lot of national acclaim, and being able to take the lessons of that plan and apply them statewide, I think is also something that should at least be on the minds or the mind of whoever the next state superintendent is. Everything from promoting more walkability. I know sometimes if you're in one of the more rural counties, that may be a little bit difficult, but certainly in areas like Montgomery County or Baltimore County, taking some of the walkability lessons that we've learned here in Prince George's County and applying those can be helpful. Things like school construction, the innovative school construction that Prince George's County has done can be a model that can also be applied statewide. And so, and I'm sure that there's other examples of things that other counties have done that have been groundbreaking that maybe I'm not aware of. But having someone who can look at the best of education in every little part of Maryland and then tie that all together so that we can all be stronger together. That's interesting. And then the last is this, again, all things being equal, I would love to see someone who actually has Maryland roots, who's been on the ground here in Maryland. And part of the reason for that is we don't just want a state superintendent who's going to be here for a couple of years. Anyone who's at that high caliber to be a state superintendent is going to be in demand for many, many other jobs. And I think that the chances of retaining someone for a 4-year or 8-year period is going to be greater if you have someone who can really point to Maryland and say, Maryland is my home. This is where I've worked for the last 15, 20, 30 years of my career. This is where my family is based. This is where I want this to be my, my last professional job. And we don't want to find someone who's a great fit and then lose them after 2 or 3 years, because a better job comes along. And that's why, again, all things being equal, I lean towards hiring someone who really has strong roots here in Maryland.
Thank you. Excellent. Well, very much appreciate both of you. Samira, it was a pleasure to see you again, and hope everything is well with you and your family. And I will make sure that this all gets transcribed into the record, and that it both serves in the process to name the next person, and that it informs the person who comes in, so that they really see what people said about what works, what needs to be changed, and how they have to present themselves as, honest and inspiring and respectful, and all of the different ways you described it today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
And thank you, Timothy.
Thank you as well.